We're all owned by the Syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the third episode of the Sin Syndicate, the only film podcast that can't see a blonde without thinking about a bum trip, or a bus without wondering who came on it. My name is Gentry Austin, amateur film critic, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And today we're going to look at another film with sin in the title, belly dancing, and a nefarious underground crime syndicate. The 1966 Yellow Peril parody, The Girl from S.I.N., directed by C. Davis Smith. I'm very excited to get into this discussion with Casey, because we've got a lot to talk about with this one. But first, we have some quick housekeeping to take care of. Casey, I believe you have a correction for us.
I do, and I imagine this might become a recurring segment because, as we mentioned, this is like it's a learning experience.
Yep.
Like not everyone knows absolutely everything about this genre, and we keep discovering new things. So the exciting thing for me was that Alex DeSanto reached out and corrected me to let me know that so the Sin Syndicate is listed in the American Film Institute catalog. It's listed
great.
under Zero Girls. Yes. And that is where the credit for Michael Findlay comes from, because it's not on the film. It's also where Lem Amero's choreographer credit comes from, but it doesn't make any. I still don't know what he choreographed in that movie. I don't think he was responsible for those strip numbers. But it was good to know that it was, in fact, credited by the AFI in their catalog. It just hasn't been updated to their website.
Yes.
And thank you for Alex for reaching out. Took a very nice screenshot of it for me, and I said, perfect, thank you, because I don't have a physical copy of the catalog from way back when for cross-reference, which I should probably pick up at some point.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Alex, for that. Our unofficial research mascot.
Yes, I adore him. So thank you, Alex.
Yes.
Listen. I love a correction. If we got something to correct, let me know. It's all about being as accurate as possible, and sometimes that's tough with this stuff. So definitely let me know.
I don't have a good segue, so let's just jump right into the film. Casey, I see you are a 4.5-star fan. So give us your elevator pitch on why we should all love the girl from S.I.N. as much as you do.
I will say that 4.5-star rating is from my very first viewing of this film, which was on Something Weird DVD that I reviewed for DVD Drive-In, which that review is now offline, but I really did rave about it. And I'm not going to rave about it today. I will still say that as a very early low-budget spoof of the spy movie craze that was such a big deal in the 60s, thanks to our friend James Bond, it is still a lot of fun for a movie that takes place almost entirely in two apartments. Uh, so it's Chuck Smith, C. Davis Smith, or known as Chuck, as he'd like to be called, and people would frequently nickname him. Making a very early directorial effort in an industry where he usually was either photographing or editing films for other people. And you also get to see him in this film, which is always special.
Yeah, fun cameo.
There's a good cast. Yes, the cameo is great. And
actually, it's more than a cameo.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a substantial role that he writes a sequence of Joyanna sticking his glasses into her bra and trying to put them on his face by smashing his face into her chest.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure he really hated as a director. So
absolutely.
But it's a fun movie. I mean, it has some light, roughy touches, but mostly this is just a gang of people who work together on other films, specifically films of Doris Wishman, who are just getting together to make a quick, low-budget movie to get onto the market to make a little cash. But you can tell that everyone involved with this is just having a lot of fun. The budget was $5,000, really, really cheap, low-budget movie.
A magic number.
Yes, very magic number. I think that's pretty much the standard budget for a lot of the movies Chuck worked on. I see that he would quote that number a lot. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm rescinding my 4.5 rating. I'm still deciding what my final rating on this is, but it's definitely a recommend and it's definitely a love because I do think this is just a lot of fun. And it is like a cousin to a Doris Wishman film, and the fact that it's told all by narration, has
With one
nonstop
voice.
music, one voice, yes. And actually, I don't know if you recognize the voice. It's the guy who narrated the Bad Girls Go to Hell trailer, whose name I don't know if I know it, but I was like, wait, this voice sounds familiar to me. Oh,
Yeah.
right, this is the Bad Girls Go to Hell narrator. Okay.
In the heart of New York's Chinatown, hidden within a dilapidated building, is the headquarters of S.I.N., an international terrorist organization headed by a master criminal, Dr. Sexus. It is here that the most diabolical plots are conceived and carried out.
So the synopsis from the Something Weird video, let's read the back of that real quick. Sexy but sinister Poontang Plenty is the girl from S.I.N., an agent of an international crime syndicate eager to discover the secret of invisibility. Headed by the evil Dr. Sexus, S.I.N. sends Miss Plenty and Mr. Silk Suit to find crackpot Professor L.B. Drake, who has invented invisible people pills. But when the bad guys attack the professor, they don't count on Drake's lovely assistant Karen, who becomes an invisible woman out to stop S.I.N. and keeps unexpectedly reappearing in the nude, in this utterly wacky New York nudie. So again, I should mention that if you want to stream the film, you can find it on cultpix.com, or you can watch it via that DVD, which is a see-through double feature.
Yes.
And it's paired with another film featuring an invisibility formula, which is 1969's anonymously directed Henry's Night In, which I find really funny. I love whenever Mike tries to pair these double and triple features up with a theme.
I know.
And no matter how loose the theme might be, in this case, I think it works really well because both of the movies feature clearly the invisibility, but they also feature scenes with invisible lab rats.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, but they're both really well matched. Also because they're both black and white, and sometimes there would be films with similar themes that are tied, and it'd be a black and white and a color film. I think it makes more sense for a nice through line for them to both be black and white. I love Henry's Night In as well. And I know we're not talking about it that much, but I will say, I know we talked about who we think may have directed that. I think it might have been Sam Chernoff, who was the head of the production company who'd made that, which was Astro Gemco. And that was the first president of the Adult Film Association of America. So I believe that's who directed that.
That one is a mystery. But
yeah, I need to confirm that. I need to reach out to Harvey Shane and see if he remembers that one.
They were threatening the professor. What could she do to help? Thinking quickly, she began to remove her clothes. She just might be able to help the professor if she was invisible. The pill had worked once before, if it only would work again. Once she became invisible, well, she'd see what she could do.
yeah, so on my rewatch of Girl from S.I.N., I had totally forgot how much this is an Invisible Woman film. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on with the super spy stuff. There's some kung fu stuff, mad scientist stuff, but the Invisible Woman man part is pretty central to the plot. So all you Invisible Man fans out there, definitely take note and give Girl from S.I.N. a watch.
Yeah.
It's definitely better, I'd say, than the 1940 film with Virginia Bruce and John Barrymore. I'd watch this over that.
Oh, Invisible Woman, yeah.
Invisible
it's
Woman,
fine.
yeah. It's okay.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think it's better than that. I don't hate that movie, but
Yeah, I don't either, but I would. Girl from Sin's better.
His chest feels as if an enormous weight was pressing upon it. His breath comes in short gasps. He feels a burning desire within him. He must find release.
Anyway, let's talk about Chuck. He's our man of the hour.
He is. Yes.
What can you tell us about Chuck?
Well, Chuck, first of all, just on a personal note, I Chuck was one of the first people that I ever reached out to talk about their work in sexploitation, because back in the good old days, everyone had a MySpace, including Chuck Smith. So Chuck was very accessible. He had a website where you could email him. I mean, he was really very present and very happy to talk to people about his
He
work
was on
and his
YouTube
films.
too, I think, wasn't he? He used to comment on.
Yes,
Yep.
that's right. That's right. He was. And he collaborated with I mean, he worked all the way up until he couldn't work anymore and he had to, be put in uh, not a home. I don't know what you would call it, but he basically had to be taken care of.
Hmm.
And he uh, he worked a lot with his son Chris, who is still around and still makes films in Florida. Who I actually would love to possibly interview for this podcast, if possible.
Okay.
But so Chuck started out like a lot of people in this industry in the industrial film um, industry. He had a background of doing films in the Army. He was part of the Army's film service.
Yep.
And when he got back out to the real world after, serving for a spell in the military, he kind of wandered into sex films through working with Tony Orlando. And so they did like Hot Nights on the Campus was one, and then Lust in the Flesh was another. They did a movie called The Block that is, I believe, lost. That was a big deal. Um, and he kind of got more involved because he ran into Barry Mahon. Barry Mahon introduced him to a lot of these women that he would work with.
Thank you, Barry.
He, yes, Barry knew everybody.
Yeah.
Barry knew everybody. Barry worked with everybody. But I think the big movement behind this movie was CIP Limited, which was the company that he co-founded with Sandy Johnson, who did Beautiful, the Bloody, and the Bear, and some other sexploitation film, a lot of sexploitation films actually, and Jerry Denby, who also was doing a lot of sexploitation films. And then they had a silent partner, Tony Scaretti, who I don't know much about, and Chuck didn't really discuss him that much. But a they did six films. Girl from S.I.N. was one of them. It might have been one of the last ones, I believe. And then the company split. Sandy stopped making movies, and Jerry kept on making movies, mostly with Shelley Wilson, for Chancellor Films and Shelley Films. And Chuck, I think, is now best known for his work with Doris Wishman because he photographed all of her really key films. He's always quick to mention that some films he's credited on he did not shoot.
Yeah.
Doris would just slap his name on something because she's like, "Oh right, Chuck shot this." It was it was a lot of so there was a lot of kind of correcting the record whenever he could. But he was basically the go-to person for Doris after she moved to New York after shooting stuff in Florida.
And what's the timeline with Girl from Sin and his work with Doris?
It's pretty parallel because I think when basically as you put it, like Doris would call and he would answer. If he was free, then he would shoot for her. So it was kind of the same. It was parallel, and I think you had mentioned that you kind of saw Another Day, Another Man as kind of like the sister film to this, and I agree. The cast is very, very similar, including the fact that it's Mary O'Hara's only other film. And you can see Joanna wearing that same see-through lingerie that Barbie Kemp wears Another Day, Another Man. So it's like, oh, was this just shot on Saturday and then the other one was shot on like Sunday? Like it feels like they were shot on the same weekend in some places.
Certainly didn't seem like an amateur to Sam. She had the kind of innate grace that only dancers or professional athletes have. She was the kind of girl who could do most assignments.
Yeah. So the CIP stuff, I think we only have two. Oh wait, we have two and a half of those films left surviving. Teenage Gang Debs is the big one. I think that was their first movie. They also did a movie. Oh no, we have Violated Love, which is I guess a CIP movie. It was an import that they added footage to, and then we have I think a reel or two of Misconduct. Which starred Louis Waldron from the Andy Warhol Factory days. But Girl from S.I.N. is kind of their big one, so we're really lucky to have it because most of the other CIP stuff is missing. They did Honey with Peggy Sarno. which I've had that press book for years and it looks
Yes,
great.
it does.
And then they also did a movie called Band, which is kind of like a variation on what Barry Mahon did with Censored, where it's just a bunch of footage they threw together that said this footage is banned, even though it clearly was not. It was either outtakes or stuff they shot specifically for the film.
Yeah. So this is a Crown International, a CIP production. I've heard that
Yeah.
this was funded by two of the actors that are in the film, Sam Stewart and Bob Orrin. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, Bob Oran or Bob Oransky, and then yeah, Sam Stewart, and apparently they were very good friends.
Yeah.
They both were from the stunt world. Actually, I mean, they had done stunts in various films and TV shows before they started getting involved with sexploitation, and so they had a long working and personal relationship before they went into making this, financing this film
Yeah.
together. So I guess logically, then, if it was a $5,000 budget, then 2,500 each was
Yeah.
basically how the film was
Yeah, those
financed.
two guys, whenever you see them together in a movie, they always choreograph a little fight scene between the two.
Yeah, that was their bread and
Yeah.
butter. That was their background. Yeah, Bob passed away in '96, and unfortunately, I'm very sorry to report, Sam Stewart just passed away in September of 2024.
Oh, that's too bad.
He was quite old. Yeah, so the interesting thing about Sam, and I think a lot of people already know this, is that he married an actress named Sheila Britt or Sheba
Yeah.
Britt, who was a German girl who she was in Murder in Mississippi with him, and he like sexually assaults her in that, and I think a few other things. So like the fact that she married this guy who had to have these horrible assault scenes with her is very interesting. They had a kid pretty quickly, and that kid grew up to become a stunt man and actor who actually was in Anna Bieler's The Love Witch.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's around still doing stunts. Yeah, he went into the family business basically.
Did Sheila retire because of having a child? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, she's still alive. She's 89 years old in Los Angeles, and as far as I know, has never done an interview. I don't think she cares to, because I think that I seem to remember that Lisa Petrucci had reached out to Sam years
Hmm.
ago because she's a big fan of his. That might be, I believe that to be true because I know she and I have talked about him before. But yeah, Sam unfortunately rest in peace just recently, just in September of
Okay.
last year.
Rest in peace, Sam. Yeah, he's such a familiar face from this era, especially from Doris's stuff. So it's always nice to see him pop
Yeah,
up in these adjacent films with Chuck. And what else has he
yeah.
been in that's outside of this, the Wishman universe?
Well, Murder Mississippi is my favorite of
Yeah.
his because I think he's really good in that, and it's not dubbed, so you get to hear his real voice, which is always really special. Um, that's the big one for me. He was and also I forgot he was in Cargo of Love, which is really good, and I think Sheba Britt is in that as well, and that's Anton Holden's film he did after
Okay.
Aroused, and that one's really good. Basically, if you needed like a handsome, tough guy who wouldn't be afraid to like show a little skin, but not that
Yeah.
much in New York at that time, you would cast
Yeah.
him.
I had also heard that Bob did some professional wrestling, and he does a little wrestling in this one as well. A little rolling around.
Yeah, I believe that. Yes, I believe that. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know
Yeah.
that, but I fully believe that, especially because I knew he worked in the stunt arena with Sam, so that totally makes sense. What better person to wrestle than someone who knows how to fake a punch and take a
For
hit?
sure. Yeah, Michael Bowen had said that he'd found some information linking him to a Cowboy Bob gimmick. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I would love to see pictures of
Yeah.
that. Michael, send me
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Let's see. A kick here. A punch here. Oh, I bet that hurts. Kick him here. Smarts. Ooh, take that and that. Here's another one.
So let's get into the film a little bit here. Let's just start with the
Yeah.
opening because the opening is probably one of the most memorable parts of the film, and it almost didn't
Yeah.
make it in the film. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you know about that?
Well, I think it was an add-on, I
Yeah.
believe. I think it was added in, it wasn't like post-production, but I think it was added after production wrapped. I think they brought Joanna back and then Jerry Denby, who apparently was a real nightmare on the set because cast himself in this role as Poontang's first target, where in this almost 10-minute sequence, so it really does, I think the movie was only 60 minutes. If you add that sequence, it actually beefs it up to 70 minutes.
Yeah, I thought about that as well. I'm like, well, if this was original without that scene, this would be pretty short, even by sexploitation standards.
Yes,
So I was like, yeah,
absolutely.
it's probably a
Yeah.
good idea that they added it.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's also iconic because it it introduces that she's not just some sexy like belly dancer who works for this this Dr. Sexist. She actually assassinates people. So that, and I remember in that image of her like pulling out the ice pick out of her hair and stabbing the guy in the neck was a big part of Frank Henenlotter's Sexy Shocker series. Like
Okay,
that was included in all of like you back in the day, the Sexy Shocker series, they would open with a really good like montage of scenes from the Sexy Shockers series to let people know like this is a Sexy Shocker. These are the kind of movies you're going to see that mix like sex and violence and weirdness. And that was
perfect.
always included in those because it is just like you're going to go see the sexy movie and all of a sudden it opens with this guy getting murdered
Yeah.
before he can do anything with this woman. So
It's such a great opening. I don't know if it exactly
it is.
sets the mood because the mood of the film isn't
No.
this dark, and it's sort of like this word.
Even the lighting is very
Yeah, it's
different.
like this wordless silent. I mean, yeah, it's just a very, very grim, sexy opening with Joanna, which is, she strikes a very unique figure, I think. With a lot of the like
Yeah.
sexploitation actresses, sometimes it's like, well, where did they find these people? With Joanna, I think it's pretty clear what her day job was,
Right.
you know?
Yes. Well, Joanna's an interesting case because this so she made this movie in New York in 66, and then she shows up the next year in The Brick
Yeah.
Dollhouse, which is shot in California, and Dave Friedman picked it up and distributed it, but it also features another New Yorker, Helena Clayton from Red Roses of Passion. So in my mind, I imagine that these two met up and decided to go to LA to become like bona fide actresses. And Joanna, she got an agent out there,
Yeah.
which is so interesting. I was kind of like, why? I wanted to know, first of all, if the credits on IMDb to her are accurate, because I don't have access to the Adam 12 or Ironside episodes to be like, I don't know if this is really her or not. But I was able to find that she was represented by this agency out in Beverly Hills, the Armstrong Buser agency. And they were the same agency that represented Anime Wong.
Okay.
So she went to a really good agency that was trying to get her gigs out in California. So if she started out as a belly dancer or a stripper or exotic dancer, she definitely was able to make that move into general release television at
Yeah.
least after she did this
Well, you
film.
mentioned Anime Wong. Like,
Yeah.
Joanna was not Asian, even though she's kind of plain Asian. Was she?
I think she may have had some Asian in her. I think that she may have been like, I don't know. I think she may have been half Asian. She definitely has Asian, and she's also plays Asian in the
Right.
Brick Dollhouse.
Min Lee?
I think she definitely had some Asian
Okay.
possibly to her. Um, but I need to research that more. But no, I think that she was Asian, and maybe not 100% of Asian descent, but
Okay.
she definitely had
Makes sense.
had some Asian there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, which also makes this noteworthy because you don't have a lot of American sexploitation films with Asian leads, part Asian or otherwise. It really didn't
Right.
happen that frequently.
And so you mentioned, yeah, that's Jerry Denby in the opening there, getting his toes sucked. What's also struck me is I had forgotten that she actually washes his feet with the champagne beforehand, which is a really
Yes.
nice, interesting
Right.
touch. It's kind of, I don't
Yes.
want to make too many religious allusions here, but I think you can definitely read something into that.
Right. There's definitely yeah, it's kind of like a sinful version of like the
Right.
washing of the feet. So it's like, and it strikes you as like using champagne to wash the feet. How decadent. It is very.
She had the kind of movement that would make a Timex stop running with envy.
But it is shot so differently from the rest of the movie because it feels like, and it definitely has more of a noir uh, touch to it than the rest of the movie. So it definitely, yeah, like you mentioned, it doesn't give you any indication the rest of the movie is going to be like this weird spoof that is not
Yeah.
intense or or
Yeah.
or really
And the
violent,
narration
actually.
that we get for most of the film is very tongue in cheek
Hmm.
compared to the non
Yes.
narration from this opening sequence. So that changes the mood quite a bit.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it's well, it's interesting because thank God for that narration, because otherwise, but there's no need for the screenplay for this to be as convoluted as it is. It's just kind of, it's just like it took me a while to realize. Wait, so is Mr. Silk Suit like a good
Yeah.
guy or a bad guy? Is he undercover trying to infiltrate the Sin Syndicate, or has he been hired by the Syndicate to find this formula? And it's just like, yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be this complicated. This should be super easy peasy lemon
Yeah. The
squeezy.
intro
Come
with
on.
like Mr. Silk is sort of a red herring. They're like, it kind of makes him look like he's going to be the central figure in this story. And then he just becomes like this
Yeah,
sidekick that kind of gets beat up and then disappears for most of the movie.
right. And they describe him as the man from
Yeah. And then they never mention
MAFIA.
that
It's like,
again.
yeah, nice,
Yeah.
good one, Chuck. Right, exactly, right. And so this actor, so Sal
Yeah.
Rogi or
Nothing.
Sal Rogue, only credited name. I know that face. I know I have seen that face in other New York films of this era. Not necessarily sexploitation, but I've seen him in not stuff like stuff maybe like The French Connection and Serpico, like crime pictures that were shot in New York at that time in the late 60s, early 70s. I've
Okay.
seen that face, and maybe even a
So maybe
TV
that's where
episode or
Chuck
two.
saw him.
That's going to drive me nuts. Yeah, or I mean, a lot of these actors were just starting out. It's kind of like the guy from The Rookies that started out in Smell of Honey and used a fake name. Um, so that's going to bother me for the rest of the weekend, and I might be able to follow up with our next episode in the corrections and
All right.
updates section if I can let you know who he is, because that really is going to bug me now because I know that face.
Silk could feel his motor start before Poontang was through. It would be running quite rapidly.
Yeah, and we've got two other faces here that show up pretty early and then are not a large part of the film, which is Barbie Camp, and another character, played by Caroline Evans. There's not much about her. Do you know anything about her?
No, never, never. She does not ring a bell at all. And also, her face doesn't jar any memories of her and anything else either. Barbie
Yes.
Kemp for sure. But even she's hiding behind this giant, unflattering wig. It's her other wigs are more flattering. Like all of the hair she wore in these movies were all
Yeah,
wigs,
her wig here is a
obviously.
brunette wig,
Um,
right?
yes, it's very jarring. I was like, oh, Poontang changed her.
No.
Oh no, it's not Poontang because he twists and turned around and
Yeah,
was
but
like,
she's
oh,
got
it's
like a
not
sexy
Poontang.
kimono on in this one, so there's that.
Yes,
But she
she
has a pretty
does.
small role.
Yes,
But once again, I mean, it's Barbara Kemp. I mean, anything
right.
you find her in from this era, she wasn't in very much, so
Hmm.
we kind of cherish these
No.
small roles.
Right. Well, I think in the kind of the magical thing that has happened is that all of her
Hmm.
stuff is available, which is great because there are a lot of actresses or models from this period where they're credited on movies that we don't have access to. We actually have access to every movie
Which is
and
like
short
four,
that she made in
four
this
of them.
era. So, well, I think it might be
Okay.
like 6 or 7. I think because I know she did like two for Joe Sarno, and then she did Wishman. I'm trying to think. There are a few others. And I thought she did a Mahon movie where you can hear her real voice. I believe she did a
Yeah.
short for him, maybe. Mary O'Hara, on the other hand, like we'll never know what her real voice sounded like because you don't hear it here and you don't hear it in
Yeah.
Another
So
Day, Another
Mary
Man.
O'Hara she is the eccentric Dr. Sexus, his daughter and assistant. Is that right?
Or Dr. Drake.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dr.
she's
Drake's.
Dr.
Yeah.
Drake's. Yeah, because they have I believe they have the same name. So I'm like, is this his wife that he's just calling is it like a role play kind of thing? Um, yes. And it's really cute because Dr. Drake is played
Yeah.
by Chuck. He basically he was the cinematographer for the movie, but when he's on camera, I think that's handled by Tony Spalla, who's his usual go-to guy. They collaborated on a lot of different things, including all the Doris Wishman stuff that he worked on. He had Tony to help him with
Yeah, he was
that.
like the pickup guy.
Yes, and I think he's still around. I have some leads on him, but actually Bowen would be the best person to
Okay.
confirm or deny because when it comes to a S.I.N or a Wishman person, he's kind of the Rosetta Stone for all that
Yeah.
info.
And so we should mention, like, this whole movie takes place in an apartment complex, and they actually explain it away as, the doctor has moved his lab into this apartment complex
Right.
to sort of be, I don't know, to hide from Sexus and the nefarious syndicate who are after his invisibility serum. So
Right.
they're all together, like, oh, coincidentally, we're all together in this one apartment complex.
Sexus is aware, of course, that both Professor Drake and his beautiful assistant, Karen, suspect that somebody is after the formula. They have moved from the professor's laboratory to temporary headquarters in an apartment building.
Yeah, I think is it on the same
Yeah, I
floor?
think
even?
so, yeah.
It's kind of like it's like, huh, interesting. Did they just buy this apartment? Maybe it became available, and they got the apartment near the professor,
But
possibly.
not only that,
Yeah, it's kind
the
of
the
wild.
photographer is also on this floor of the apartment.
He's also on the floor, right? Exactly. And then Karen is friends with him, and this the photographer, played by Sam Stewart,
Yep.
conveniently named Sam.
I always like it when
Uh,
they do that.
introduced photographing. I
Makes
do
it
too.
easier.
It's kind of like, well, it would make more sense if they had dialogue, because then they wouldn't forget their name. But it's also just kind of like, he's Sam. He
Yep.
looks like a Sam. But he's introduced photographing June Roberts, looking amazing, modeling
Yep.
milk for topless. So like the Dairy Farmers of America are apparently launching a
Yeah.
topless ad with June Roberts. And I might start drinking more milk if June
Yeah.
Roberts told me to.
While Sexus is plotting the kidnapping of the professor, Sam is hard at work. He's working on a new advertising campaign for a dairy product.
Yep. So she's being photographed by Sam, and it's just one of those scenes you throw in a sexploitation movie. You call up June to do some modeling, and someone brings the jug of milk.
Right. Because Darlene was probably
Yeah.
busy or something. Right.
But I'm not complaining.
No, it's always nice to see her pop up. Like, and it was just this little thing. I should mention, I think all of these shots in the photographer's apartment I think that's all Bob's apartment, because apparently he had, area set up in his apartment for people actually shooting photography and films there.
Yeah, I'd heard he was a masseur. So anytime you see the massage table, that's from his apartment.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so there is so much Bob in
Yep.
this movie. And it's great. And of course, he casts himself as the villain, gives himself a massage
Yep.
sequence, like, and then hires, I guess, another one of his wrestling buddies or stunt buddies to play his right hand man, who also gets involved in some fight
Oh yeah, Big
sequences.
Job. Is that Big Job?
Yes, and I don't know who that is, because there's three other cast members that have no name, um, or that are credited, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who that is, unfortunately. Big guy though.
So yeah, we've got a real smorgasbord of kung fu, spy tropes, sexploitation.
We have some rough.
There's a little bit of roughy stuff. So yeah, there is a very amusing roughy sequence. Speaking of massage, they make use of probably Bob's own like little sweat box.
She knew now that she was completely in their power. She knew she was in for the worst when she heard Sexus give the order to sweat her.
Which is cute. Which is like, it's a steam. Yeah,
It's a steamer.
it's not exactly the most terrifying. Yeah, it's not the most terrifying torture sequence. But yeah, it's like some giant steam machine where it's like she's given like the heat treatment. Is that what they
Yeah.
call it? And Barbie or Mary seems very. She tries her best to look terrified and in pain.
Yeah, it doesn't. She doesn't exactly come out looking too like baked, but we'll believe it.
I like, something that I really like about this, actually. I forgot the invisible fight sequences. So I really love that. And that is why this is a really good Invisible Woman movie, because basically she's kind of the thrust of the movie. She's kind of the hero of the movie, to be honest. I mean, she's the one who kind of gets into these fights, letting these
Right.
stuntmen basically pretend to take punches and hits and stuff, and it actually is kind of
Yeah.
effective.
And then later at the end, Chuck's character, he gets to do some like heroin. Well, I mean, you don't see it because he's invisible, but he kind of saves the day at the
Right.
end by untying their
Right.
by untying them from their shackles.
Right, because he unties Sam
And Mary's character.
and then I forget Carrie, right?
And then
exactly.
Sam, grabs
that's
like the
right.
knife, and it goes into the finale. The pretty abrupt finale, actually.
Yeah, it made me wonder if maybe the negative was incomplete. I believe this is from the negative though, which is like I mentioned before, such a such a miracle that we have it because most of the CIP stuff is not available and looking this good. Teenage Gang Jump doesn't look this good, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
And so this is really, I'd say, kind of Joyanna's film. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's really quite a
Yeah.
find. I wish I knew more about her background, but I think obviously she knew that she had something special because she went out to Hollywood and tried to, seek her fortune out there.
I mean, she's a great
Um,
face.
I'm really interested in seeing.
Her
She
nose,
does,
she's a
yes,
great
and also I
nose.
think she's really good in like the sequence where she does like her a Tora Satana kind of martial arts
Yeah.
thing demonstration, which is great. She's very slinky and sultry, and she looks like she's just eating up the chance to be like a bad girl. But also, she gets the sense of absurdity that there is in this movie because she seems to, in the sequence with Chuck, she seems to be having a real blast, just being a totally ridiculous like sex pot trying to seduce this
Yeah.
loser.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, I think she is kind of. I mean, she's top billed. She is the star of the movie.
Yeah, in Brick Dollhouse, she's just kind of a cameo. I mean, it's not a cameo, but it's a pretty small role.
Very small. Yeah. And I mean she for that movie she is the thrust of the entire narrative, but she's not in it that
Yeah.
much. But you get to see her in bold, blazing color. That movie is really well photographed.
Hmm.
Looks great. And I do have a soft spot for that
Yeah.
movie. But yeah, this is kind of her big star vehicle for sure.
Yeah, and so what happened? You said she went out to California, tried to make it, but it doesn't sound like it worked out.
No. I think, yeah, just little tiny roles in television.
Yeah.
I mean, she had a good agency. She was signed with a good agency, which is great. I mean, the same agency handled like Brian Keith, and other major people at that time. I mean, they handled Brian Keith around the same time that he was on like Family
Mhm.
Affair, and they were able to negotiate the fact that he shot everything, all of his scenes really quickly in a compact space of time. So the whole series was shot around his scenes that he shot like months before. So she was with a good agency that would do the work and try to get you work and like vouch for you. I think I think it just boils down to whether she was a good actress, which we can't really tell
Right.
from this. I think she's fun, but I don't know how she is with dialogue.
Mhm.
And also racism. I mean, let's just be honest. Like the fact that they took a chance on representing Anna May Wong is very promising. Like they represented her around the time she was doing her television show, which is Lost, but it was the first television show with an Asian American
Yeah.
lead. And they represented her at that time. So they seem like a good agency that would have had her back, but I just think it was the nature of the industry at that time. And it's a shame we didn't get to see more of her, that's
Yep.
for sure.
As Poontang prepares for her modeling session with Sam, she slips the potent potion into her pants. No man living has ever been able to resist this most powerful of drugs. He would perform like he never performed before and hate himself afterward.
But this is a great showcase for her. And it's a great showcase for Chuck, who really gets more screen time than you might expect from, someone who's known mostly as a cinematographer.
Yes. It's basically a co-starring role. I mean, he gets a lot of screen time. And so when I spoke to him years ago, I was trying to get more info about this movie because when the DVD came out, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't like a Chuck commentary
Yeah.
on it because he had been making appearances with Something Weird at like to the Chiller Theater Convention and a few different things like that. I think I'm trying to remember if he'd done the commentary for Night to Dismember with Doris yet. But he was answering questions, doing interviews, all that stuff. So I was very surprised to not have a commentary on that release. Um, but he really made it sound like, well, this was just like, this is a really whirlwind shoot. It was really quick. I handled so much of it. It really was
Yeah,
my
he was doing
baby. Like,
everything.
he wrote it, he shot it, he directed it, he acted in it, he edited it. Like, it was all handled by him. But it was done all so quickly that he kind of like, it was done in such a flurry that he didn't remember specific details about the shoot. Which kind of tracks. I mean, it looks like it was shot very quickly for very little money. Um, and that was just kind of the nature of the beast at that time. And like you mentioned, if he shot this in between gigs for Doris, then that really kind of
Yeah.
muddies the memory waters, so to speak. It was, um, I wish I'd known more about. Uh, I wish I'd known more of like Bob and Sam's memories of the shoot because, um, yeah, it sounds like it really was kind of their baby. I mean, it was their
Yep.
money.
They put up the
Um,
money for it, and the $5,000 film was easy to make your return on. So, who were
yes.
they? I had read that Joanna might not have even been paid for her work in this film. I don't know what kind of
I
shenanigans
wonder.
Jerry
Oh, that's
was
interesting.
doing behind the scenes, but
Yeah, I wonder about that. Well, because I think they broke up not long after this movie finished. I think this was their last movie, I believe, because it was and Chuck, I know he didn't get along with Jerry. And then Sandy, I think, kind of got burnt out as well. So that would not surprise me. I don't know where that money would have come
yeah.
from.
Yeah, Sandy kind of wanted to be a star from what I've heard. He wanted to be an actor.
Hmm.
And so he has some
Yeah,
small roles in some other
you can see
films
him.
as well as this one.
Yeah, he's the male lead of Nudes on Tiger Reef. Like
Yep.
he is the male lead of that. Yeah, I think he's in a few other things too. Very handsome guy, very good looking guy. Could have been as a director. I think Teenage Gang Devs is like his only surviving film that he directed. Oh no, Beautiful, Bloody, and the Bear.
Yeah, so much of his stuff is lost.
Yeah, I think it's just those two, and then Misconduct, which only has a few reels on like, and that's on like a Twisted Sex compilation. That's something weird put
Yeah.
together. Yeah, Sandy's an interesting guy. I wish there was more known about him. He died very young. I mean, he died, I think, late 70s, I
Yeah, I'd
believe.
heard that as well.
Um,
Well, that's a good, segue as well. This is, like we mentioned, this was a CIP production with Chuck, Jerry, Sandy, and who was the fourth, the guy that we don't know much about.
Tony, yeah, he basically was like a
Yeah.
money person. He was like, just do this and then distribute it and give me my
Yeah, so
percentage.
not long after this, they did the Hot Nights on the Campus. I believe it was after this, right? Or
No,
was it
that was
before
before
this?
this. Because that was before that. Because that was when he was working with Tony
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Orlando. So Chuck did the Tony Orlando stuff first, and then the CIP stuff was after around the same time as the Wishman stuff. So that's when
Okay.
those two periods coincide, the Wishman and the
Yeah,
CIP stuff.
gotcha.
Well, that's on the Campus isn't too bad though.
No, it's a good movie. It's another, like, if you like this, these weekend wonders shot mostly in one apartment, two apartments, several rooms of the same apartment, but with like familiar faces, and that one's more melodramatic, but this one's definitely more fun, tongue in cheek, like Euro spy tropes in a sexploitation pot. But yeah, let's talk about Chuck's like work after this. What did he go on to do after Girl from Sin?
Well, he did a movie that he directed. Well, first of all, he fell into the Sam Lake universe. But it was
Yeah.
not through sex films because Sam Lake didn't only do sex films. He worked with Sam because Sam was doing some show that he mentioned. I think it was called Crazy Races, is what he described it as, and it was an animated show that Soupy Sales was supposed to be involved with. And Sam had to deal with Columbia to do this series, and so Chuck got involved because he was involved with this company and he was doing the editing and sometimes the cinematography. And once Sam saw that Chuck could do this work really quick and effectively, um, he had him edit together some compilations that he released of like Little Rascals and some old 30s comedies. And then he did some loops, some like nudie loops for a video jukebox that Sam was developing, which I don't think went anywhere. Um, and then after that, he was like, "Well, I need products for Sam Lake Enterprises. Would you make a movie for me?" And so he did. The first movie he did was File X for Sex, which was kind of like a Lusting Hours kind of thing, where it was like a weird mix of like Mondo movie and Ruffy. I don't remember liking it terribly much. I need to revisit it. But he also
Does
did
it
all
go
my.
like alphabetical? Like File X for Sex, does it go through the alphabet, like through the
I
different,
don't recall.
like,
No, I don't think it does. It doesn't go through like a filing cabinet. It's saying like
okay.
A for anal or so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything like that. No, I think no, not what I recall. Not from what I recall. I do have the DVD-R of it, and it's been out of print forever. I need
Yeah, I
to.
hope that
I
gets
need to.
reissued somewhere.
Well, Distripix owns all of these because Distripix handled all the Sam Lake Enterprises films. So they're all with Distripix. They have either negatives or prints for pretty much all of these. They have so Chuck did File X for Sex. He did All My Men, which was a Jackie Richards star vehicle, and Jackie Richards, of course, is from Doris Wishman films. He did To Turn a Trick, which I love. For some reason, it's his most low-rated film he directed on IMDb. I think it's because not enough people have seen
Just
it.
because nobody's seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they're rating it if they haven't seen it. It's actually really good. It's live sound. It's a melodrama about like a handicapped photographer and his relationship with a model. Um,
Yeah. With Janet's
it's
and Janet Banzette.
yes, and Janet's very good in it. Yeah, Janet Banzett. Yeah, yeah. And then I'm trying to remember. He did one more, and I'm trying to remember what it was now. It was a handful of stuff. It wasn't All My
But
Men.
yeah, this is all within like 66, 67,
It was all. They were all
right?
shot super quick, and that's why when I did the liner notes for To Turn a Trick for Something Weird because they reached out to me with a bunch of District stuff and they said we're reissuing these on DVD-R. We like updated liner notes because their
Hmm.
box copy was the old stuff, which was like a paragraph of stuff like it was just straight descriptives from like the press books. So I
Yep.
contacted Chuck to ask him details about To Turn a Trick, and he said, honest to God, I don't remember anything about this. It was a very quick shoot that I did for Sam. Um, I sent I sent him a copy of it. He watched it, still didn't remember anything about it. So he said, all I remember about this is I definitely remember designing the ad campaign for this. And I
Okay.
definitely remember that I edited it. I don't remember shooting it. I don't remember the actors. I don't remember when I did it or how long. He didn't remember any details about it. And he was kind of that way for a lot of the Sam Lake stuff because it was all done super duper quick. He'd
Yep.
remember specific actors, like of course Jackie Richards. He'd worked with on a lot of other stuff, um, but and File X for Sex, he didn't remember much about either. Um, and then he did a movie called Graffiti, which is lost, and he tried for years to try to find it and never did. Um, and then he kind of fell into the porno scene. He fell into quick movie making for the unfortunate meat market of Leonard Kurtman.
Uh-huh.
And worked with people like Zebedee Colt. But I think his probably the best, most prestigious adult film he worked on was Neon Nights. Um, and he
Definitely.
photographed and edited that and actually had some really good stories for me that he would not share publicly about the production of that movie, which really indicated to me why that movie is as disjointed and weird as it is. It was not intentional.
Yeah.
But there's some production problems with that one. But that's really good work that he did on that, and he's interviewed on that DVD. I wrote all the questions for that interview, and it's on the new Blu-ray that came out, which is great.
I'm walking neon nights of the city. Don't you know I'm looking for you? Oh, are you gone? Did you carve your number on a stranger's pillow? I can hear your echo. Are you leading me on?
Yeah, we should mention. So yeah, after 66, 67, he was directing his own some stuff, and then he kind of fell back in with Wishman and did a bunch of stuff for
Yes,
her.
right,
And I wonder if, like, he did a couple hardcores with Wishman, which seemed like that was kind
right.
of his intro to hardcore, and then he did Neon Nights with Cecil Howard.
I think he did. He was doing hardcore earlier than that, I think. I
Was he?
think, yeah,
Okay.
he was working with Kurtman earlier than that. And I'm sure it happened just because Kurtman started in softcore with Dystropix, and then so all these people in New York eventually knew each other. So,
Hmm.
and I think Kurtman was also involved with like doing industrial stuff and things on the side. So I'm sure that's how they got connected. But he definitely was involved with the Wishman hardcores. I think he kind of should be getting credit for directing most of those because I think Wishman is it's been put on the records that she wasn't even in the room for all the sex scenes. She didn't want to be there, and she didn't like talking about those movies.
Yeah, like come with me, my love.
Uh
You know,
huh.
there's some really good cinematography in that.
I
If you're
agree.
a fan of, Chuck's stuff with Wishman, his imprint is definitely on those. They actually,
Yeah,
yeah, they look really good. And like you said, Neon
yeah,
Nights.
I like those.
Yeah, Neon Nights is kind of. I almost think that that's his work on Neon Nights is kind of his zenith. And
Yeah.
I feel like he got a decent budget, and I mean, relatively, but it's
Hmm.
in color. It looks kind of amazing. Yeah.
Right.
What
Well,
do you
something
think?
that he told me was when I've reached out to him to do the extras for Neon Nights, I had some initial questions off the bat, just for my own knowledge before the interview was done. And I was praising specific sequences and things, and I said I don't know who edited this because I don't think at that time there was. I think it was edited. I think it was credited to somebody else. But he used the name Carl Davis on that, which was not a frequent pseudonym that he used, which is also really interesting. I think because
It's his porno
by
name.
80, well, his most of his porno name was Charles Lamont, and so it's very strange that he
Hmm.
didn't use Charles Lamont on those. But I think it's because by 80, 81, he was moving more into more general release stuff. He was doing a lot of other industry stuff. He was doing music videos and all sorts of other stuff. So he had a specific price tag when Chuck asked him to shoot it because or when Howard Winters asked him to shoot and edit the film. And he quoted a number to
Hmm.
Howard, and Howard was kind of like, but knew that he was going to get good stuff. So he paid him. But then Howard asked him to edit the trailer for the film for free. And he said, no, that's different. Editing the trailer is an additional
Yeah.
cost because he was editing television features and trailers, and he had different prices for all three, I believe. And so he said that's an additional
Okay.
cost. And Howard wouldn't pay him, so he didn't edit the trailer. But I think that is his best photographic work in adults because I think he knew that he was being paid basically his mainstream price tag for that feature.
Hmm.
Unlike doing it for cheap for people like Kurtman and Wishman, Howard was going to pay him what he would pay like a Hollywood cinematographer, and that's exactly why you get the quality of that product in Neon Nights.
Yeah,
You really get to
yeah,
see
you
how good he
get kind of
was.
a Hollywood look. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really need that 4K release to see how good it looks because the DVD looked good, but I know the 4K's got to look better.
Never send an idiot on a fool's mission.
Yeah, and you can really tell that Chuck is he came from the old school where you did everything. He could edit,
Yeah,
he could shoot, he could direct. So, with Chuck, you got it all, and he really could do it all. He really
yeah,
showed that, I think, on that film for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And then he kind of moved away from X. He went back into doing, you know, non X stuff. And then he eventually moved down to Florida and was doing independent features and different local stuff down there with his son until he just became too unwell to do it anymore, and then he passed away. He was I guess it just says something about Chuck. Like his time management skills is why he was able to get all this stuff done in such a timely manner. And I got to experience that, and I'm so glad I did because I would email him questions, and he would let me know. He would shoot me back an answer really quick. It's like, I'm in between production, I'm editing something right now, but here's the answer to your question. Just to let me
Oh,
know, like,
nice.
I'm working, but I have time for you, and I will answer this question. And he was always really good at that. I would never not get a response from the most random question, and I'm not the only person that he was like that with. And also somebody that I found really interesting. He had a website for a while, and I don't remember when it went away, but I remember when it was up. He sold DVDs of the original version of Night to Dismember on the website, not the
Okay.
version
Yep.
everyone knows with Samantha Fox and everything, the original version. And I never got to ask him, Chuck, how do you get a hold of this? Because I thought this was supposed to be destroyed and gone forever. And apparently, I think the only version that exists is from like an ancient tape master. And apparently he had that tape master.
Yeah. Was he working on a book at one point?
Yes, and that was something also he always liked to say. It was like, I never got laid was supposed to be the title. And I think he was working on it, but I think he also just kept so damn busy. Like, it's the thing, he loved making movies so much and he loved staying active that I don't know whatever came of that. I need to ask Chris. But it would have been a really great book because he really did do it all.
I wonder if there's some notes in a drawer somewhere, or if that was just kind of a joke. Like,
yeah, because he always used to say that he would answer my questions, and sometimes the answers were how he would always just end an answer with kind of like, "Can you believe after all this I still didn't get laid?" Like that was like his shtick. It was kind of like Rodney Dangerfield's "I don't get no respect." It was like he had to use it as a punchline as much as he could, and I loved it for it because I was like, you know what. You got it going with this catchphrase. Keep going with it. He was a lot
which is what makes that Joanna scene at the end so much more funny.
Yes,
because he
had good comic timing. Yeah, he's really funny. Yes, exactly. Yes, he almost gets laid. Actually, funny thinking about this movie. There's no sex in it. It's always almost sex.
Not. Yeah,
and then there's some dancing, and then there's some naked ladies, but there's no sex in this movie.
No, yeah, maybe that's just part of. Yeah, maybe that was intentional maybe it was just supposed to be a lighter spoof.
Yeah, I think so. But it's just interesting because when you think about it in hindsight, it's like, oh wait, nobody actually had any sex in this movie. Like it's always almost sex.
Yeah, the premise is that she gets them aroused so she can do her karate chop, which only works when they're sexually aroused.
Silk learned later that what had hit him was an ancient karate blow. It can be effective only when a man is sexually stimulated. By hitting the correct nerve in the base of his skull, a person is immediately paralyzed. In the Orient, this is called the necky nookie knocky, a very devastating blow.
Right. And then she has a love potion, which is funny, and I mean it's fun. And I think it's one of only there aren't that many sexploitation movies that have that spy angle. Like there's Spy, which is another Distripix one. There's The Spy Who Came, also with Lewis Waldron from Misconduct and Andy Warhol movies. But it wasn't that common, which is strange because you'd think you'd have more sexy spy spoofs in this era of Bond, but they're not that frequent.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Chuck had said about how this did commercially. I know he was trying to, like you said, maybe the spy angle was on its way out. Maybe it didn't do as well as they thought it would. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not sure if he was as interested in that, even being part of the distribution company for this. I think that was a Denby thing because Denby really fell in with Shelley Wilson, and I think really because he was so close to her and worked with her on so much other stuff, well into the late 60s, and I think even into the early 70s, I think she was involved with his stuff. I think he was maybe more involved with the money aspect of things. But he's no longer with us either, so I don't even have confirmation of that. But I just feel like because he was actually much more involved with distributors than Chuck ever really was. Chuck was never really... he was not the kind of person to go knocking on distributors' doors and be like, hey, so I just saw this did this well in Variety, so where's my money? I see Jerry Denby doing that for sure, because Jerry Denby would be hanging out at the distributor's office anyway because he's friends with them. So they wouldn't be trying to scam him, especially because they know that he'd be delivering more product to them.
Right.
And then Sandy just wasn't. I think Sandy lost interest and just bailed. But even he was involved with Shelley before he stopped because he did some movies into '67, I believe, after this. So
yeah, if we haven't made it clear, I mean, Chuck was here on the ground floor of sexploitation. He's a character that some of us know about, but he's not a common name, despite being very important within sexploitation, not just because of the Wishman work, But I mean, he was one of, I think Michael Bowen called him like a charter member of the New York sex exploitation film genre.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, without Chuck, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have a lot of the singular images that we now associate with the genre.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, I mean, even the Wishman films alone, so many of the low angle shots from
Yes.
there. Bad Girls Go to Hell is kind of that's still my favorite of all of those, the black and white films, and his photography in that film is really impressive.
Yeah, like the through the leg shot. I don't know who started that, but it
Yes,
shows up
right. And My
in
Brother's
a
Wife and
lot
that
of
kind of thing.
movies.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the movies that Chuck shot have it. So I don't know. I'm not gonna give it completely to him because I
Right,
think it was kind of a shot that was floating around
right.
exploitation for a while. But yeah, it's a great shot.
Well, because I know like Russ Meyer definitely did it in Faster Pussycat,
Yeah,
and that was 65. So it definitely started around that time, but that was more West Coast. But that's very true. I definitely agree that he was a charter member of the New York sexploitation racket because I mean, he started in what, 64 with the sex films, because that was when Crazy Wild Crazy with the
very.
Barry Mahon
Yeah,
movie, and then that's when the Tony Orlando connection started. So, yeah, that's very true. And he was kind of working with all of the major players at that time, except for the Findleys, but that's because they photographed and edited their own stuff. They didn't need to work with Chuck.
right.
Though I
Yeah.
think they did on
So
something because Roberta knew him very well.
yeah, so we're just trying to give Chuck his flowers. He's no longer with us, but Casey had the privilege to spend some time with him when he was, and we hope we learned at least a little bit about Chuck. And definitely check out The Girl from Sin as a, a good example of his style within 66, 67. It's not yet as explicit as it would get or as rough as it would get a couple years later, but I think this is a great example of his work. What do you think?
I think so. His later district films are not as light, and
Hmm.
so watching this film is real. And the fact that he's in it and he's in on the joke and he's having fun with everybody, I think it really is more indicative of the kind of person he was when he was making movies like this. He was having fun, um,
Yep.
flying by the seat of his pants, trying to make his way through this industry in New York, and yeah, I think it really kind of captures Chuck to a T, the kind of movies that he enjoyed making.
Agreed. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, actually, just a little bit of trivia, which is interesting because I um I saw for some reason that Joanna was credited in Ultimate Voyeur, and I said, wait a minute, she's not an Ultimate Voyeur. So I popped in Ultimate Voyeur. The credits for
Okay.
Girl from Sin, which is all the cast and all the crew, that all of the credits have been transposed onto the Ultimate Voyeur, which came out 3 years later in 1969. The only new credits are the producer credit and the director credit. So Chuck and none of the cast from Girl from S.I.N. have nothing to do with the Ultimate Voyeur. I don't know why the title graphics for this 3-year-old movie ended up in this 1969 film. I don't know if they were just lying around or someone just threw them on there. Um, but do not be fooled. There's no connection between Girl from S.I.N. and Ultimate Voyeur.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting because yeah, I saw her name listed as well, and I remember not seeing her in that film, which
Yeah,
is
no, not even like old footage.
yeah, that's a strange film too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a whole nother episode we could
I
do about the
know.
Ultimate Voyeur and the mysteries surrounding Cosmo Vance,
Yes, which is strange because I don't know who that is.
but we will not go there today. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I started watching it and I kind of clipped through it and I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's why all the credits in IMDb have been corrected to say uncredited for the whole cast because they're not credited. It's
Yeah.
all just fake credits stolen from a 3-year-old
Yeah.
film.
So for your Joyana fix, do not go to Ultimate Voyeur. Stick with
Nope.
the girl from S.I.N. and
Yes.
the Brick Dollhouse. Any other trivia?
It's really gonna destroy me if I don't find out who Sal Rogi is, because I know I've seen him as like a cop in something or a mob guy in something. I've definitely seen him because he has a very Italian look to him.
Yeah, he's got
And
that
so,
face for sure.
yes, so I know I've seen him in something shot in New York as either a cop or like a robber. Like he's either in law or crime. And now I need to go look through these films like French Connection and Serpico and some other stuff to see if I spot him.
Her number, 0069. Name, Poontang Plenty. She's coming to this theater soon. Catch her, if you can.